A suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya has defended his relationship with National Police Commissioner Mpho Kwinika. He is also calling for his own reinstatement. Sibiya has taken Kwinika to court following a July decision to place him on a leave of absence pending an internal investigation. That decision was based on allegations of corruption made by the KZN Police Commissioner. Now, during court proceedings yesterday, questions were raised about the professional relationship between Sibiya and Kwinika. This morning we ask, could that relationship be salvaged, of course, depending on which way the courts decide. Let's bring in the Independent Policing Union of South Africa, Mpho Kwinika. It's great to talk to you. Thanks for coming on. These are the two top cops in the country. One has dragged his boss to court. Depending on how the courts decide, if indeed Shadrack Sibiya does go back to his job as Deputy Commissioner, will there be, in your opinion, surely some difficulty in that working relationship?
Definitely, Michelle. There's going to be a very difficult, way of mending their relationship because there is this thing called a broken down relationship or irretrievable broken down relationship, which we will see it being put into General Sibiya's, charges, because the intention is not to build, it is not to bring the conduct of the General Sibiya, but to the required standard, but it will be to punish him. But either way that this matter is going to pan out in court, as you have said, the institution that is bruised terribly here is the South African Police Service. And the SAPS need to be reorganized. It need to be re-engineered, regardless of what happens between General Kwinika and the General Sibiya.
Yeah. So Sibiya, the deputy in this relationship, has defended his working relationship with the National Commissioner. But Mpho Kwinika told the court yesterday that Sibiya, by dragging him to court to try to be reinstated, has now made the working relationship incredibly difficult. Look, the point is, if one of us believes the working relationship is difficult, it doesn't really matter, does it, what the other believes?
It is not about them. It is about the department that they've dragged into a public space. They had failed to resolve their own issues internally, and they then depended on an external institution such as the High Court. I am not saying it is not the right place to be, but their inability to address internal issues within the ambit of the law, that is what makes matters worse. That is why it will be very, very, it will be not correct for the government to continue and allow the South African Police Service to continue to operate in the manner that it is operating now.
Look, it's going to depend on what the court decides on this matter. We know that judgment has been reserved. That case was heard before a full bench of the High Court yesterday. And the questions were essentially about whether Mpho Kwinika even has the power, given that he is also implicated somewhat in the allegations by the KZN Police Commissioner, whether he has the power to place his deputy on a leave of absence in any shape or form. So that will be up to the courts to decide. But the bottom line, Mpho, is that the police themselves, the SAPS as a whole, is, and I think this is fair to say, is in a state of crisis. The KZN police top cop, that's Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, and that bombshell interview alleging all kinds of political interference and corruption in the SAPS tells us that. And then, of course, our statistics of violent crime also attest to that fact.
Look, the issue of the South African Police Service inability to deal with crime and to manage, to be properly managed by the senior management of the SAPS, it is not a new thing. The issue of docket manipulation, which we have heard from General Mkhwanazi, it's also not a new thing. I want to remind South Africans that in 2008, the specialized units were closed down. And three amongst those which were closed down, which were very important, it was the public order policing, the family violence and child protection unit, and murder and robbery unit. Those units, if you look at the issues, although they have been, two of them have been later established, the expertise has already been hollowed out because the members couldn't take it. Then they decided to leave the institution. Others were placed in other units. And later on in 2009, the unit which was established to deal with issues of corruption in this country, in the name of Scorpion, it was shut down deliberately to make sure that the criminal justice system is being disabled to do its work. And the SAPS has continued to suffer this kind of political intervention interference up until today. And this is the case of, the case of General Sibiya and General Masemola is a turning point into something that we want to see, bringing changes into the South African Police Service, the service that will be able to protect the interests of South Africans, their lives and their properties, and guarantees them freedom without any form of violence. South Africans are dying on a daily basis. We're carrying body bags of about 17,000 in a quarter. And if you look at the issue of the task team that we are fighting about, only 1% of people that are killed contribute to that 17,000. What is it that makes this task team a continuous team? And if you want to make it a unit, why not make it a unit? Because it is also costly to have it, to continue doing its work outside the establishment of the SAPS.
Just over the past weeks and months, Mpho, we've seen taxi violence surge. We've seen gang violence surge in particular parts of the country. KwaZulu-Natal, the Western Cape, of course, has been facing the scourge of gang violence for decades now. The point is, and I think this is what you're outlining as well when you talk about the number of people ending up in body bags in our country, is that we can ill afford for the country's top brass to be dragging each other to court.
Again, it is not about them. And if the leadership of the government are listening, it is their duty, it is their responsibility to make sure that when the top leadership of the institution are not able to lead the service, they need to be relieved of their duties. The South African Police Service is an establishment in terms of the constitution of the land, and it has got constitutional obligation. And if it is not realizing that objective, those who are leading need to be put aside, and capable people need to be placed. Michelle, you must also take note that SAPS, the organizational structure that we have now, it is incapable of fighting crime. We have been saying this thing for years to say, please put a structure that has got the capacity to fight crime. Put a structure that is going to be able to preserve lives and properties of our South Africans. And this has not been happening. And what happened yesterday, it necessitates that such kind of a discussion need to take place.
Certainly. Mpho Kwinika, let me thank you for your time this afternoon. He is with the Independent Policing Union of South Africa as we continue to track what was a showdown between the police commissioner and his deputy in court.